One of my favorite rabbis, and yours too, is fond of saying, and maybe you've heard him say this, you can either look at life and say, oi, or, anybody know? Wow. Right? You should listen to him more. He says good stuff. Yeah, I'm going to tell on you. He's talking about an attitude with which one greets the world and reminding us that there is a choice granted to each of us, perhaps not about what we experience in the world, but certainly about how we respond to those experiences. And the Torah and Haftarah passages that our people are engaging in this week from China to Chicago offer some guidance on that oi, wow decision that each of us has and how we might embrace that choice, especially when it's difficult, because often it is. This week's Torah portion is the source for our hymn that we sing together, often Ma Tovu, with which we begin most Shabbat morning services, and on Rosh Hashanah we begin it every year. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu. It comes from this week's portion. And those Hebrew words are an exclamation of amazement by a non-Israelite prophet named Balaam. He's saying, wow, how amazing this is, upon witnessing the Israelite community. And this week's prophetic reading, the Haftarah portion, comes from the book of Micah, who uses a very similar set of words, just as wow and oi have similar sounds. They're connected by sounds. But Micah famously says, Higid lecha adam ma tov. It's been told to you, humanity, what is good, ma tov, and what God requires of you, uma Adonai doresh mimcha. And these words we perhaps all know. God requires of you to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Micah's ma tov from this passage is an interesting contrast to Balaam's ma tovu. Even though these words are nearly identical, their meanings are almost complete opposites, and they teach us about these emotions. Balaam's ma tovu is filled with awe. Balaam witnesses the Israelite encampment below him in the wilderness, and he says, look how far these slaves have come. Look how unexpectedly amazing this community is. Balaam has this bird's eye view, and when faced with the whole picture before him, he's moved to gratitude and wonder. Micah, on the other hand, sees the individual failings of each Israelite in his time, and he knows that his nation will be defeated and will have to rebuild from scratch, as tiny and fragile as drops of dew. And when faced with this reality, he says, look how far you have to go. You know, ma tov, you know what is good and what's truly expected of you. You know how far off the mark you are. That's the tone of Micah's quote. You must find a better path. And then Micah offers those inspirational and profound words that are the recipe for teshuvah and for finding ma tov, a truly good path, to do justice, to love mercy, and walk humbly with God. We observed Independence Day just this week. Next week, we will begin our journey toward the high holidays with a day of memory for the breach of Jerusalem's walls, and we are on our own personal journeys as individuals as well. And these two declarations from our readings this week offer us a recipe for how we can, at any point, take stock of our own existence as Americans, as Jews, as individuals. When we think of our Declaration of Independence and the gift and challenge it is of being an American, we can absolutely say, Ma Tovu. How amazing this is. How wondrous is this way of life that is in our country's DNA. Even amidst the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln said, in so many words, Ma Tovu, when he said this, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived of liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Of course, this is the Gettysburg Address, and he went on to talk about the men who had fallen at this place. And he said, the world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they fought here for us, so nobly advanced. It is rather that we are dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we were highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people shall not perish from this earth. We have an incredible legacy, and there are so many reasons to be proud of who we are. And at the same time, we can also look at many groups who are still fighting to be whole part of that American dream, and we can say, we know what Ma Tov is. We know what is good, and we're not there yet. Frederick Douglass spoke for those people in 1851 with these words, "Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions, whose chains, heavy and grievous yesterday, are today rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not faithfully remember those bleeding children of sorry this day, may my right hand cleave to the roof of my mouth. To forget them, to pass lightly over their wrongs, and to chime in with the popular theme would be treason most scandalous and shocking, and would make me a reproach before God and the world." We know Ma Tov, Douglass is saying, what is truly good, and we're not there yet. Both of these riveting speeches are true, even today. They do not negate one another. They stand independent and are both true. As we think of our Jewish community, a people who has been through so much, wandered for so long, had to be so strong and so conscientious in preserving not only our lives, but our principles and traditions that make life worth living, we can say Ma Tovu. How wondrous and amazing it is that we are still here, that we are thriving, that we are presidents of universities where once we were not allowed to attend, where we are public leaders where once we had to hide our identities, that a desert now blooms and our wandering and wretched masses have built a homeland. Truly, this is a miracle. Ma Tovu. But we can look at the internal strife we cope with as an extended Jewish family, the struggle for civil rights in Israel with the disastrous decisions of the government just this week, the suffering and the unjust treatment of Palestinians, the lack of understanding and judgment we inflict on one another, and we can say we have not yet reached Ma Tov, what is good and righteous. We can even look at our own lives as members of our family, our community, as friends, as citizens, as human beings, and say Ma Tovu. We do so much that's right. So often finding ways to be kind, to be forgiving, to be patient, to make our world better. We take care of one another when we're sick. We are generous when we can be. We lift one another up. But if we're honest with ourselves, we know that we miss many opportunities to live Ma Tov, what is good and righteous. We know of our failings, too many to count. We leave people behind and on the outside. We gossip and we belittle. We lead with anger instead of compassion. In taking stock of our personal lives, we must say Ma Tovu on a regular basis and be grateful and proud of our many gifts and great goodness. But we must also ask, as Micah instructs, Ma Tov, Ma Adonai Doresh Mimeni. What does God ask of me? And how can I come closer to giving it? These two declarations produce a healthy balance that will inspire us to love ourselves, our people, our country, and will also force us to never be complacent. There is a Hasidic teaching of a great rabbi who carried 2 slips of paper in his pockets, one in each pocket. And on one he wrote, Bishvili nivra ha'olam, for the sake of me, this world was created. And on the other he wrote, Va'anochi afar va'efer, I am but dust and ashes. He would take out each slip of paper as necessary, as a reminder to himself. Each and every day is an opportunity to acknowledge both how beautiful, how good our lives are, and also that we are still on the road toward where we should be. In other words, may we always have enough hope that we say, wow, loudly and often when we realize how far we've come. And may we always have enough strength to say, oi, when we see how far we have to go. My prayer is that this Shabbat's matovu will be tomorrow's matov. Shabbat shalom.